Welcome to the Black Science Podcraft. This is a cross between a podcast and a presentation where you'll have one speaker delivering a concept, a theory, an idea to the other. So the goal is to allow you to critically analyse these points and to see if they hold any weight. So why black science? So there's a few reasons behind the term black science. Stay tuned to find out.
All things.
And when people say it's very interesting or use it, I say it's a cop-out. And that's why I wanted to talk about that, because I don't like it. Could it just be the nature of humanity? People use that as a cop-out. It's just a cop-out for the reality that humans have just come up with something evil and we want to just say, it's just the way we are, man. There's nothing you can do about it. So, another comment. They used to call me yellow, mulatto, etc., and both my parents are black. At least you're still considered black. I'm not told you're not black. I'm not told you're not black, though, like I am. I've got to fight people down to prove my blackness, right? This is what someone's saying, right? So basically, they're light-skinned, but they got two black parents, and everyone considers them mixed race or tells them they're mixed race. They're not fully black, and it annoys them.
I've got a cousin that's got two black parents, but it's very light, and he's got like green eyes. So and his hair is it's kinky, but it's almost cool. It's almost like a coolie kink to it. And he's had those same not issues. I mean, maybe it's issues. I think there are challenges when you're kind of coming into your teens, and you kind of like who you are and who you self-identify as has a huge part to do with kind of the social group that you associate yourself with. And I think within our social groups we do, I think, and it might be natural to develop in men like there's a banter around kind of the differences, but I've definitely seen it in family where there's and I think internally sometimes those are the spoilt children. Those are the ones that the grandma likes more because of colorism. But then externally, there's a kind of a you look mixed, like you look like you've got a white mum, and that hurts. And I think the crosses we there.
Yeah, because she was annoyed. We could tell by like the energy in the comment, and like I always get annoyed when colorism is brought up, because this is like a system thing, and then somebody mixed race or somebody light skin says, yeah, but we get it too. To me, it's like that whataboutery. It's whataboutery, because I'm not saying you don't get it, but why are you dissuading from the point that we're talking about right now? Why has you got to be whataboutery? Because we all know that there's a specific system that is more prevalent, more fundamental to the whole discussion. Like, it's based on the whole system of racism, that, slavery, all of this stuff, where, dark is bad. Like I said, this is global, right? But then that's mentioned, and then somebody wants to say, yeah, but I'm light skinned, and people get onto me about being light. So, at least you're black. It's like, it's almost it's like when people say, all lives matter. It's like that.
Doesn't that also go back into the whole colorism? Why are we discounting that they're black and that they still have the same things just because of the light and dark skin shades? That they still have an issue that is still within our issue. So why are we discounting that?
It's not discounting. It's just that the conversation is about a specific type of colorism, and then it's what about this kind of colorism, though? Well, let's talk about at least you're black. At least you're considered black.
And people hate,
at least you're considered black.
I hear that. I definitely hear that.
We wasn't talking about that. We wasn't talking about that. It's literally like white lives matter or all lives matter.
No, we can't. I don't think it's that far.
It's still a black issue. It's still a black issue, because you both just gave examples there of what was that I missed? Why are you laughing?
No, because that's how I feel.
No, because my basically just said that a mixed race guy.
No, she's not mixed race.
No, we don't know this. Okay, a person that comes from two black parents who's viewed or perceived as mixed race is the same as someone saying, like a white guy saying, yeah, but my life matters too. Like,
exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's not the same. That's why I had to say to him. No, that's what I have to say, because they're still black, and then that shows the colorism that we have among ourselves, because their side of it is still a part of our story that we're here discussing, but we're having that kind of
colorism amongst ourselves. They still do share the same thing that what we share, man.
You can't say that. You can't say that Shanika and Gary are coming from the same place, though.
No, it's the same. Look. So the conversation is what it was. We all know the conversation. The comment is, they used to call me yellow, mulatto, etc. Both my parents are black. At least you're still considered black and not told you're black. Like, I got to fight down my people to prove my blackness. So at least you're still considered black. Like, don't complain about you being with all this stuff about how black you are. At least you're considered black. So look on the bright side, because you know what my problem is? You know what happens to me? It's whataboutery. It's literally like when black people are talking about, let me finish. It's what when black people talk about the discrimination, police brutality, and somebody says, yeah, but all lives matter. So why are we just talking about black lives? Because other people go through stuff too. It's not just you. It's other people too. It's not just you. Just chill out.
I think
it's you.
I mean, I
you
think
get what
the
I'm
conversation.
saying? No, but you get the point I'm making.
It's deflecting because I think it's the friend. It's the person. No, but you know what? It's the same my idea of the friend that you've got an issue, but they always want to talk about themselves. So it's whatever you tell them, it's like, yeah, I know, but my team.
Exactly.
So it's that, exactly. But I do, and the reason why I want to kind of give not a pushback, but kind of like the flip side of that conversation is that there are various forms of colorism, and it does go both ways, and I think it is nuanced, and I think I don't think it's an issue speaking to the nuance, but I think because you could read in the tone of what she was saying, you could kind of read in between the lines.
Talking about like what
do you mean at least you're black, and I think that type of victim mentality, for example, is something that I think we should not shame, but I think we have to be careful in not giving it too much credence or giving it too much strength, because actually, as much as it's a nuanced conversation, you clearly want to say, you lot should be proud of being black. I'm not black enough, and I think there's always an other counter narrative, and I think we have to be careful about giving too much attention to that tone of the conversation, where I think it is interesting to know actually that the same light skin cousin that I've got that was kind of spoiled within the family was viewed as mixed race and viewed as half white outside of the house. So there's a difference in the way that he's socialized or conditioned internally in terms of familial influence, and then externally is like it's a different thing. And I think those nuances are interesting, but I think that comment specifically came from like a place of like, forget your struggle, my struggles matter, bro. What about my struggles?
Yeah, that's literally what it was. Now I just wanted to make that point out.
Yeah.
Even though I'm saying that, I'm very with you with the nuances. But I want that to be clear, because this conversation always goes left because these kind of comments come out. We don't ever actually get to talking about this because everyone just says, yeah, but it happens to me too, it happens to me too, it happens to me too. So nobody cares about the actual reality of the point. Everyone just, it happened to me too, it happened to... But we're talking about an actual system that is affected for hundreds of years. Slavery, all this stuff, and it's the same for me though. Do you get what I mean? And it just washes the point. Now, like you say, the nuance is important, right? So my reply to her: do you think you were insulted more for your lightness than a dark-skinned person is insulted for their darkness?
You even made it more of a competition. So I wanted to trigger her more.
I responded to that question. I wanted to see how she responded to that question because you know why? Because I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, because even though I heard that tone that you just described, I thought, all right, maybe I'm just wrong, because this question will line up with will clarify, you get it, whether or not she is just like that, it's all about me. Because if you're honest, we all know the answer to that question. And then she replied.
Did she reply?
Yeah, she replied, I think it's equal. I think it's equal. And I'd argue being insulted for your lightness is accepted in our community, but being insulted for your darkness isn't. So we don't have a support network like dark-skinned people do. So to me, that's just nonsense. I'm not trying to offend that person, but I think that's blatantly nonsense. And it kind of shows the point I'm making a second ago, is when the discussion's brought up, then you hear the what about meary, the what about isms, and then that leads to these kind of narratives where we're not really being honest about the whole subject. Of course, there is such a thing as dark skin supremacy, if that's a term, right? But it's very much showing the minority. We know globally, we all know, like is right, why is right, whatever you want to call it. We all know how this thing works. You've got many black people all around the world bleaching to be lighter. You haven't got many black people all over the world making their skin darker. Like, it's just not like that,
Well,
right?
white people do that.
We're
I
not
mean, not black.
talking
Okay,
about white
sorry.
people.
Yeah, sorry. All right, I just realised what I said. Different subject, different conversation. I got it.
It's completely different, and they're just trying to make themselves look like light-skinned people
No, but
at best, right?
I think you're right to challenge people when it's clear they're coming from
100%.
a victim. But I also think in the with the idea of trying to maintain like like a a beneficial or mutually beneficial dialogue to to come back with the nuances is just as important, I think, because I think otherwise we can get into like the back and forth being not as fruitful in terms of like where's the discussion going in terms of, and I think that's why I immediately went to actually there are nuances. I heard the tone, but it's almost like you might deal with someone like how you deal with your child. Actually, like, I know what you're trying to say. I'll deal with the rudeness in a minute. Let me deal with this first, and then we can get to the fact that actually your tone shows or belies your intent of the comment. But let me just deal with kind of the context as opposed to kind of how you try to say it. You know, like, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, and how people say it tends to be the way that we respond. And I think, you know, people say that, why don't you match the energy? No, you don't have to match the energy. So you can ignore that energy and just respond to the thing that might end up being a fruitful discussion. And I think, you see it with all comments. Like, people, you think to yourself, why did you say that? Like, why did you say that? And you look at, I mean, I think we won't experience it in the way that some of the kind of the broader leaning platforms do, but comments is like the graveyard of ignorance in terms, and I think we will suffer the tone even when we know that the dialogue is still fruitful. We will experience that actually this is just what happens in the comments, and that to a certain degree,
Yeah,
people just
I
love
hear that, but yeah, like I say, I would say on this, that's a cop out too, because this is a pattern of back and forth on this topic. Sis, I don't know if you're talking, but I can't hear you. Maybe you're muted or you're on the phone. But yeah, this is a pattern.
Sorry. Someone commented. I wanted to say before you go off. Obviously, this is an engagement, an engaging platform. So someone's left a comment, and I think we should kind of read that out or address that. Sorry, and I was on a call then. I did get a call then.
Okay, so what I was saying, yeah, is this type of back and forth, for me, it isn't really about a fruitful discussion, because like I said, that's why I asked that follow-up question to kind of test where the energy's at and how honest, in my opinion, how honest or sincerely do you really want to discuss this topic, right? Because that's how I will gauge whether there's any fruitful to be had. People like to be biased in the ways they're biased. I'm biased, you're biased, everyone's biased, right? For me, once I recognize there's a certain biasness on a certain topic, there is no fruitful discussion to be had, because you're just going to hold your position. That's how I see it. And like I say, with this discussion, this isn't the first person, third, fifth, with this type of thing happening. Like I say, this is a pattern. This conversation is brought up. It's like talking points when you talk to somebody who's like a far right type person. There's certain talking points when you bring up race or reparations or something that they're going to hit on. And you can kind of gauge the kind of person is straight away about the way they rebut what you're going to say. And there's a limit to how far you can get with a discussion with this person. And pretty much they let you know by the talking points they kind of run with. Now, it's not for me to try and convince, that's dumb for me to try and change or convince someone or make them see it another way if they've already kind of hemmed in with their comebacks in a certain bias. Like, what we have to do is deal with people where they are, see people where they are. If that's where you are, that's cool. That's where you are, that's how you see it. I'm done, because I understand, again, this is a common theme. This isn't a new conversation. It's a common theme, and it's
The comments.
not yet. I'm still saying something. It's a common thing. So, end of the day, what once I see that you're not really trying to have this, I'm not going to. I don't really care to keep going back and forth. What's the point? You know. And she did add to it, though. She did add to it. You know, I think it's equal, and being insulted for your lightness is accepted in our community, but being insulted for your darkness isn't. So we have a support network for dark-skinned people. Anyway, really her problem was, bottom line is, we both have two black parents and shouldn't be treated like I'm mixed because I don't have those privileges, and my younger brother is dark. I'm an N-word, and they fucking know it. So it's a personal thing. She went on and it's just a personal thing. So she made the whole topic, because this wasn't, even though I led this discussion with a subjective experience about me, it's not about me. This is the entire topic man's trying to open up a discussion about, right? But she made the whole thing about her, as far as I was concerned. And that's happened before. Like I say, this is a pattern. I've seen it happen many times. Straight away, it's her feelings about it all, and it's about me, rather than the bigger picture.
But
and I try to question.
as a platform, there's this, like, I think you're right to call it out, but I think also there's a space for that. There's a space for someone's very individual issues, very individual victim mentality, having the light shone on that specific type of experience. I think you're right to call it out, but yeah, I think there's definitely a space for not just the nuance, but just in terms of allowing people to be for however for whatever reason consumed in their own thing. And sometimes the internet and online platforms like ours, like many others, are just a space for them to vent those individual personal vendettas, chips on their shoulders, whatever it is. Like, we're here for the engagement. I think there's a part of the engagement that will be people, the conversation triggering something personal for them. That
you have to have that goal in mind. You can't let nothing stop you. And even when you feel like you can't keep going, you stay consistent and keep going. 1 foot at a time, you're already farther than you ever will go. That's why they say you only need to take 1 step forward. But if you take a step forward every day and stay consistent to it, there's no telling where you'll go. There's no telling what you will accomplish. There's no telling what you will gain. But first you must be dedicated to gaining it, going there, and making it that far. So I'm leaving you with 2 things, and that's dedication and consistency. I would say which one you're gonna do, but I need you to do both.
Let's go. Tamarind ting, good for magnesium, good for fiber. Cherry nice, very good for blood circulation, recovery. Root tonic, blood circulation, iron. Power bitters. Start your morning and your day with it. Clean your gut.
right at the beginning of the first episode, around kind of black being used as a slur, like where we spoke about my history would be, I remember the term blick was used, so it was, but there'll be somebody that will be triggered and they will be reminded of an experience that they had that was similar to that, and the only thing that they might want to comment on is, yeah, that happened to me too, or it happened to me differently. So the flip side of it would be, if someone came onto the comments and said, yeah, someone used to call me black, and related directly to your experience, it would be something that we'd be able to relate or resonate. And I think this is what us talking about some of these topics will do. I think for the right and for the wrong reasons, it does trigger not just conversation, but it triggers these feelings of people. The person that wrote, that woman girl that wrote that, might not even known that she was coming from, she was writing in a tone. She probably just wrote how she felt at that point. But it came out, and when you read that, you could hear the tone. You can hear from the tone of the way it's written, how the comment was formatted, that it was coming from a specific place. And I think, yeah, the YouTube comment section is almost like a therapy session for some people. And I think the topics that we're going to discuss are going to be triggering people to make them comments. Not as wild as you'll see on some of the other podcasts maybe, but I think when we touch on things around race, culture, religion, spirituality, these are things that are going to trigger people that have got an interest in it, let alone people that just kind of happen to come across it and just get vexed for whatever reason. And I think all of the comments, although they don't all deserve, or they're not all worthy of discussion, I think some of the more ignorant ones, it is good sometimes shine a light on them, because we can kind of pick the sense from the nonsense and kind of call out, actually, we know where that came from. Like we saw that a mile off, but there is a deeper conversation in what you're talking about that she might not have even contemplated. Like there's an internal race, there's internal colorism, there's internal tribalism, there's Caribbean versus West Indian. There's so many different forms of internal prejudices that we hold. Anyway, that type of comment could have led to that type of discussion, but she was caught up on her, and I think, for the most part, yeah, you were gonna get. We're gonna get. I'm assuming that if you get 20 comments, like 5 or 6 of them are gonna be that kind of me, but me. You know the what
No, but I
cartoon is
hear
it?
that.
There's a cartoon. There's a cartoon where there's a seagull that goes me, mine. Like it's that kind of mentality. The person that is just perpetually internally the air.
No, I hear that. But I don't want to. I'm gonna move on.
That is a point of why we're having these discussions as
Mm.
well. But is that how many more have we got? Have we got another few comments to address, or is it
a
those
few
two
more.
only?
Yeah, I want to move on, but just to say, my thing isn't that she's made it about her. My thing is, this is a pattern of how this conversation is dealt with. That's why I wanted to bring it up. I agree with you. The comment section, people, you say what you like. I'm not here to say you shouldn't say this, you shouldn't talk about yourself. I'm not saying nothing like that. That's perfectly fine. The whole thing for me with this comment is I'm not even really talking about that commenter. I'm talking about in general, this conversation is brought up. That's the kind of thing that happens.
Yeah.
And that's a pattern that happens with this discussion. Similarly, like I say, with that Black Lives Matter, and you had people saying all lives matter. It's what happens a lot with these type of discussions. We're given whataboutery. That is why I wanted to bring out that comment, because of the whataboutery energy that happens with this discussion in particular. Colorism. And even in the comments, somebody has put, everyone has someone bullied them for something they can't change. Everyone has been duped one way or another. That is more whataboutery. Because no matter how true that is, people are bullied for different things, and that doesn't change. We're talking about colorism. This is a thing. So to discuss a thing, we can't just say other things happen anyway, so it doesn't matter. That doesn't help us understand the thing or deal with the thing that we're talking about any better. Do you get what I'm trying to say? When the sisters brought up her situation, oh yeah, but I'm like, but that doesn't help us deal with the thing. Let's talk about what we're talking about critically. Let's not just say, what about the other thing? And what about the other thing? And what about the other thing? So as if to say, because you can say another thing happens, then what you're saying isn't really that valid.
I think the bullying thing will probably just come back to kind of trying to put the conversation back to what is or isn't human nature. And
Whatever that is, can you see why I'm saying that's whataboutery? Because
That's why at times when they come in, you have to maybe address what it is, because it might be a point you've made rather than the whole thing. So again, we need to keep an eye for that. Sorry to cut you.
I mean, I think I get what he's saying. I can imagine when he's come up with it, but like I say, the point we're talking about is people being bullied for the colorism, because of colorism, a system that we understand exists, rooted in racism, rooted in oppression, rooted in colonialism, rooted in imperialism, rooted in all these things. We're talking about it, and then someone says, yeah, but everyone has someone bullying them for something. They can't change. Everyone has been duped one way or another. It's another form of whataboutery. Can you see that? It's like saying, well, it doesn't really matter that he's bullied for being black. That's not, because it's not about the being bullied for being black. That's not the point. Even though man are using that as an example, that's not the point. We're saying that situation is rooted in this systemic thing that we're calling colorism, which is rooted in another bigger systemic thing called racism, which is rooted in another big systemic thing called imperialism and colonialism, and the whole history that has led to this situation. But then you want to say, but what about me? Because that's not the point. It's like, you get what I'm getting at? It's what I'm saying is, this type of way of dealing with these conversations makes us not deal with the topic, the reality of it. It makes us get lost in pointless back and forth.
Yeah,
if we're trying to talk about
that's why it's important to kind of address what could and can't, or what should be the layers. And what we've done is we've added layers to the origins of colorism, like the different ways that colorism kind of rears its ugly head. Some of the older forms of colorism that have been born out of elements of prejudice, and whether or not that's human nature or not. And I think, I wouldn't give the bullying comment too much more energy.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
definitely think that
Well, he's come back and he said, no, it's the UK, or he or she has said, no, it's the UK. So again, I'm not sure what part that is in reference to.
It's not just the UK though; it's global. But you see, so all right, we'll move though. We move, right. So the next comment, yeah, that I wanted to talk about, yeah, was this guy. Yeah, he said, "I'm white. I live in Lewisham. I complained to my daughter's school." Pastoral team. I don't know what it is. Pastoral team. Who are
group.
okay?
Yeah.
Who were black women about the intolerable colorism that was going on unaddressed in the school. I'm not sure why I'm sharing this. Maybe in the hope it enlivens others to act. So what I thought when I read this, yeah, you got a white person, because I remember hearing on LBC one time a white person said he went to Uganda, yeah, and he was like, bruv, you see the colorism in Uganda is crazy. They treat me like I'm a god. Like that, and it was mad to hear a man say this on the radio, right? Because it sounds so mad for a white man to say this about how African people are treated.
To admit to it.
But when he's saying it, I'm saying that sounds mad and sad, but I know it's true. I know it's true.
That's interesting. That dynamic's interesting because he says he's a white dad, so I'm assuming that he's got a mixed race daughter.
Who knows? But probably, right? But the thing is, yeah, what I thought when he says this, yeah, is I know how the black parents are gonna know about the colorism too, but they ain't never gonna go and complain about it. It would take a whole another race of a person to think how mad is it that you lot are being colorist. Like, you should stop doing that and actually go and complain. Like, I'm not saying a lot of white people are doing it, but this white guy did. And the first thing I thought is the black parents are gonna hear of it and they're not gonna say a thing. They're definitely gonna complain.
No, I've sat on a lot of school boards and there's always one or two. I just think that the nuance in that specific scenario is quite interesting.
It is,
because I think on one level you speak to like us as African Caribbean descendant darker peoples tend to kind of be less engaged with the school, like typically.
I don't even think it's that.
I think deeper than that, and with his situation specifically, it sounds like you're in a multicultural relationship, and your daughter or your son is experiencing aspects of racism that it enrages him that he's raising it, because it should be coming from somebody else. Maybe my partner as a black woman, or if it's a white woman, a black man, like they are tired of having to raise these issues of race with the school. They kind of almost accept that the school is going to be racist. And me seeing it from the outside, I feel compelled to, and I see there's one side of it. It sounds mad, yeah, but the part is like I don't like the white savior thing, yeah. And we see this in the Hollywood construct that there's always going to be someone in a Black Lives Matter. There's a white person that's right at the front too, and that's that, and we rate that person. But I think it's really interesting because that specific comment coming from that specific, the way they've worded it, it does sound nuanced, and I think we can only speculate as to kind of what the scenario is. Like, I've given what I think it might be.
I'm saying we don't have to. I'm saying your analogy there of him seeing racism and not racism, colorism. This is a different thing, because I'm saying, if it was racism, black parents are getting involved. I'm saying they're not having white people calling their son nigger and gollywog and all that. If it's known about, if it's obvious, right? They're not going to have that. They're going to step up. But the colorism, they ain't going to say nothing. This is the nuance I'm talking about. They ain't going to complain about that. They're going to know that's going on and be like, yeah, this is what it is. They're not going to say that consciously, subconsciously. They're going to just know, this is the point. Like, this is the point. Because if he's in a mixed race, if he's in a multicultural relationship, then his thing. It sounds like, why am I having to say it? It's almost a call for help to his partner, because the partner should be speaking up as much or more than he is. I don't even think we have to go and speculate on his partner. I don't think we have to go that far. I'm saying, all we know right now, he's a white guy that went and complained about colorism, right? So he's complaining about black people insulting other black people, or black kids insulting other black kids about their color, right? Whether he's got a kid, he ain't got, I don't know. We don't know. Partner, we don't know. We don't have to go there. My point is this: that's not happening with the black parents. the black parents are not going to go in there and complain about the colorism going on amongst the kids. This is the new.
I don't know if I agree with that,
Yeah,
because I work
I've
work
been
on a board of governors, so I
yeah,
get
I've
the
seen,
behaviour reports through
yeah,
for myself, and actually there is a lot of internal racism amongst Asians, blacks, Africans, black West Indian, and it comes up that, like exactly what you said in our original discussion, with reference to yourself, Match, that there is a lot of that internal thing that goes on amongst ourselves. So
Yes.
I do feel that with that, the schools have a responsibility to say whatever, bring it up to the parents, and sometimes parents, they might not forthrightly come in and complain as much as if it's a
That's what I'm saying.
white and a black, might not as forthrightly, I said, let me finish, but actually it is something that is brought up, and it is amongst us as parents.
yeah,
It is.
yeah, yeah.
When
We
you
do have
say
to
it is
deal with
brought
it.
up, what do you mean?
Especially now, especially maybe not so much in our generation, but definitely in this generation, there is very much of that
I've been
divide.
governor.
When
I've
you
worked
say
in
it is
schools and worked in
brought up, what do
government.
you mean? It is brought up.
Behavior like racism incidences that involve black children, Asian children, blacks amongst themselves being racist or whatever it is, like what you said regarding your experience as a child in school.
Yeah.
These things are reported, they are logged, they are then
Yeah, that's
given
not
back
the
to us.
parents.
No,
I'm
no,
talking about the
no,
parents
but then
coming
the
in and
parents have
complaining
to be
about it.
involved. Yes, and some do, because the school has a responsibility to communicate and let these parents know that this is what has happened. And if it is a continuous thing, this is what the school will do. It goes down their behaviour policy. But what I'm trying to say to you is, with that, some parents actually do come to the school and say they don't like it. I'm letting you know,
Yeah, like I
as a
think,
sitting governor.
yeah, as
It
a
does
person that
happen.
worked in like
Yeah.
many schools
Yeah.
over the last couple of decades, and like I would second that, and that's why I mentioned in the first place that there is culturally, I think, a thing to be standoff with schools in general. So that I think I would agree to us as melanated parents being less engaged than we should
That's
be
right.
in with the
Yeah.
school. But I would say that the ones that are, trust me, they speak up about everything. It's not just racism, it's colorism,
so
it's
to be
cost
clear,
of school trips, it's everything. So I think the ones of the black parents that do engage with the school, they would raise colorism. Yeah.
so to be clear, we're saying that black parents are coming onto their school and complaining about black kids insulting other black kids about their blackness.
Yeah,
Being
like,
colorist. That's the thing.
I've had parents come in with reams with pages of Facebook comments
Oh,
where
yeah.
girls are going at each other
Online
for
stuff now,
all
yeah.
of these reasons,
Yeah.
for being red, for being for being cool, for all
For
of
a
these
reason.
and for colorism, not just racism, but with all black girls, the parents come in complaining about the colorism or the coolie shaming, or there's a barrage. And my point is that
That's what even Matt said, the dark skin, you know, being...
yeah. So I think you're right in that we as black parents aren't as engaged with the schools,
Yeah.
but I think the ones that are will speak up about anything that their child comes home and complains about. I mean, literally anything. You think, oh, why? I've sat in meetings with them, so, oh, do we need to talk about this? But there's always a parent that wants to raise one of these things, and I think, I think the comments that we're both making is more. I think when we say something like most black parents wouldn't, I think that's too broad a brush. I think the points that we make is that there are many parents that do engage with the schools that do raise colorism as much as the Jerry or the Gary or whoever the white cop that
You're going Gary and Jerry all the time.
I don't know.
I would guess that this Gary or Jerry type guy, whoever he was, that's a rare thing, yeah. And so would you guess that black parents are less likely to come and complain about colorism than they are to complain about racism?
No, I think
your word, your questions is that very leading, but that,
I think I'd agree that a parent, like the average black parent, that one that doesn't engage in everything, is way more likely to come to the school about a white student saying the N-word than they are about another black student saying my hair's too straight or I'm too light.
Point.
Yeah, and I think and 100%. I'm just saying that the parents that do engage, I don't think it's accurate to paint a broad brush and say that most black parents wouldn't complain about colorism, and it's come from a
Yeah,
And
a
that's
white
a
parent.
fair
you
point
know
as
why
well.
I say that?
I don't think that's
You know
accurate.
why I say
Having
that?
worked in schools
And we, yeah,
Yeah,
for
I
20
hear
and we
that.
can
years.
I
back
hear
it
that. You
as
both say
well.
you went to school, but
Exactly.
you know why I say that, right? Because
Yeah.
colorism, again, goes on in every black community in the diaspora, and the vast majority of them in Africa, right? If parents were coming and complaining about colorism, every black parent would be doing it.
No.
No.
No, but it happens in every school, bro.
Yeah, of
Doesn't
course.
happen in one or two of them. It happens in them all.
Yeah.
So that means every black parent would be complaining about it.
No, I mean there will be complaints in every school. Colorism is a complaint that comes every school that I've worked in, and I've worked in dozens. There's
Right.
been
So how many
multiple
parents are you talking about?
mo,
Go
mo,
Well, we
kids
need
in
to get a
school?
breakdown of that match, but he's saying that from his
no. I'm just
experience,
saying that we can't. It's too broad a brush, and I
No,
don't
but
think it's the point
I'm looking objectively here.
what have you
no.
know?
We've
I'm
got
not
a
looking
school.
objectively.
So look at it
Myself
like
and
this.
myself
Look
and
at it
Sister
like
Pastor
this,
aren't
right?
talking
We've got
objectively.
a
We're talking
school.
from experience.
Yeah,
Parents
I hear you.
will
I hear you.
complain about colorism.
I hear you.
No,
I
they
hear
wouldn't.
you.
No, they wouldn't complain more about colorism than racism, because racism is something that
I hear you. Right.
we're
All right.
conditioned as black
I'm
people
with you.
to
To
react to
react to it,
in institutions
which to me
way
is
more.
is a dead
So I would
excuse.
agree that it would happen more, but for you to then say that if colorism, if some parents do, then every parent would. No, it's not every parent, and I'm going to argue every parent. I'm just saying it's not accurate to say most black parents wouldn't,
All right.
because I've experienced many parents
Can I
complaining
give you
about.
why I
You
can
may
say that, right?
even try
My
and break it
example,
down to
my
rules.
example. I've never heard in the whole time I was in that school of any parent coming in and complaining about colorism, even though it
But
was.
we're older. We're talking about current
Well,
now.
No,
you never know. If you
I'm
went to
just
the
talking
school, you'd
about one
never know.
example. I'm just talking about one example. So just let me land on here, right? Remember, I'm saying it's a majority black school. Let's say it's a 60% black
You talking about
students, right?
school you went to?
Yes, the school I went to. I'm
You
just giving you an
never know.
example.
None
I'm
of
just
the
giving you an
students,
example.
most of the students that went to the schools I worked did not know when parents have either complained about or there was investigations about colours, unless they was drawn into investigation
Fair
meetings.
enough.
Many pet students would not have a clue
Okay.
that this has happened and be embarrassed and
Fair
appalled that
enough.
their parent has even raised it
All right,
with,
I
with,
hear
with
you.
pupils.
Can I say what I'm saying now? Yeah. Let's say hypothetically that school in now times, because that seems to make everyone happier. Now times that's like 40% black, right? Right. A school with 40% black students, yeah, right.
Yeah.
They got 40% black students. That means 40% black parents, right? If 10 black parents are coming in, if 20 black parents are coming in and complaining about colorism, that means the majority. What I was saying, basically, to sum it up, if there's 400 kids in a school, 400 black kids in a school, and 20 parents are complaining about colorism, then the majority of parents are not complaining about colorism. And I'm saying this is something, it's not secret. This is a cultural behavior we have wherever we are. We all know that it exists, right? So this 400 kids in a school isn't just in the UK, isn't just in some one state in America, isn't just in one state in South America, it isn't even just in one country in Africa, it's wherever we are, right? So quite objectively, I can stand on that simple logic there and say the majority of black parents are not going to complain about colorism. Because it's so cultural, we accept that logic, we accept that it's just going to happen, and it is what it is. And, bruv, a lot of people are colorists themselves, so they're not even opposed to those ideas in that way. Let's be honest. And that's just being objective, bruv. I mean, if we actually just look at the logic of it, well, like I say, why it was pertinent that a white person brought it up is purely because I understand that they see it. I'm not saying it's common that these type of people are going to go and complain. I'm saying it's very obvious to them that this is something. So the reason he's done it is because he's like, raw, fam, you lot are just stop it, because now he's got some investment in it, so he cares a bit. It's not about no white savior, it's just the fact that he's not so comfortable with it as we are. That's the point I was making with him. We're very comfortable with this type of rhetoric flying around. So I would argue with chess, even without the experience you guys have had, yes, the majority of black parents are not complaining. Yes.
Because the person that was made the comment about bullying made a comment about school in Ghana. I can't remember what it said, but he
Yeah,
mentioned
it's gone. Yeah, it's gone off the
something about
screen now.
school being school in Ghana. He said, "I imagine how they're treated." And yeah, no. I mean, when I read it, I wasn't sure how to take it. I was thinking, have you been to Ghana? Do you know? Do you like, or is that just kind of you making an
This is
assumption
where those
based on?
engagements are important, you see. So, because
I,
sometimes you can say something and then
That
because
was
you know,
it.
you said
He
it
said,
past,
imagine how a light person will be treated in school in Ghana. I was thinking, like, why did you
it's,
go to school in Ghana? Like,
it's
what?
water
Like, you know,
battery.
like,
It's water battery.
mm,
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing that happens. Just to add to that point there, once water battery begins,
there's no
there's no end to it.
end to the water
There's no
battery
end. There's
still. It's
no end to water battery.
infinitum. You keep
Infinitum, bro.
just
And
keep.
all the while we're diminishing the point that we started with and the big topic that it is for the sake of water battery, which gets us nowhere. Because you could water battery with anything. Oh, I lost my phone, but you know what I did? I crashed my
No,
car the
I
other
think
day and da da
any
da
air
da da da.
battery is always always a part of the A or B. So any other business
Yeah,
discussion, like it's a
yeah.
secondary part of the dialogue. Still, it is. But I think yeah, you're right that the comments, like I think we done well not to kind of respond in a certain kind of way this evening. But I think because I was gonna ask that person, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean in Ghana? Like, what do you mean? Um, that colorism and that it go back to what we spoke about in terms of that the colorism is rife within children. Like these prejudices, all of these prejudices are rife within children.
definitely.
It's taught, and it's also when you look at the studies when they've kind of filmed children at certain ages, the tribalism and grouping up and shaming others for power. It is an aspect of what is a developing child's human nature. I don't think it necessarily
I think it's
is
taught, man.
adult. Huh?
I think it's taught. A kid doesn't recognize the difference until it's
I hope
pointed out to him.
we
He sees the behavior of other people treating people different, and it's subtle stuff. But he picks up. You know, they've shown that the dogs of racist people, or like dogs can start behaving racist. Like they don't care that you're black, but they can sense the behavior of their owners changing when they see a
No, but
certain
hey, but
type of
I've
people.
seen similar studies with like chimpanzees where they've got like a chimpanzee that didn't grow hair everywhere was ostracized. It was just as strong, but because he looked a bit different,
yeah,
the chimp was ostracized. Or like you might get like it's different if
Same
you've got
though.
it's different if
Same.
you've got like an animal with like a limp that can't hunt, but something that's just kind of aesthetic where it didn't change
Same, but even with
his
the
ability
chimps,
to
if the chimps
interact.
treat that chimp like he's normal, then the other chimps will treat that chimp like he's normal. But what you have is a culture where some chimps start treating him like he's not normal, so the other ones do too. They have
No, but
power
what I'm saying is
dynamics
that
in these chimp
what
troops.
I'm arguing against now is I think there's an element to prejudice and alienating what's different in a group. So if you've got 10 people that are all jet black and you've got one person that's slightly light, as a child, that child will be sectioned out. I think it may well be a part of a child developing mind in ignorance to alienate what's different and celebrate, and you'll see kind of the mob culture comes into play where the child's behaviors, they act different to how they would do as a one to one when they're in this kind of group culture. And I think you
mm,
get children that will do that and alienate people for any difference. And I think colorism just becomes one of the things that's important discussion. But I've definitely seen it in younger children where if you get even in parties, I've seen where I've had like children's parties, and I've seen a child comes in that doesn't know everybody, for example. That's a difference. You don't have the relationship, or it's dressed a bit differently from other children, and they'll just and you might be right in that gang culture, that mentality might well be taught. But I think when you can see it in nature, in terms of how animals might pack together against one difference, I think we can say that there's a natural aspect to prejudice that leads itself, especially in children groups, young children groups, where you can say some of it's taught, but I think how they interact away from adult supervision is also quite interesting. And I
mhm.
think the way that they kind of it's forms of tribalism, but you start to see groupings on similarities that they won't necessarily have it discussed. So a child doesn't necessarily have to discuss with another child that their home background is different. There's
Non-verbal
certain
thing.
character traits and
Mhm.
non-verbal behavior traits that they'll start
Yep.
grouping up, and then the numbers will mean that there's someone will be alienated, and it might be just for fun, but the prejudices do come, and I think colorism is an aspect of that. It's definitely an aspect. I think it's less human nature than some of the other prejudices that you'll see in child behavior specifically. But I don't think we can steer too far away from. There's an aspect of alienating what's different, whether that be a color or any difference in childhood. I think it's a process of development. I think it's a part of child development or brain development where you have to kind of see things, not have to, but I think children may see things in more polarized ways that they don't have to be taught in.
Yeah, I disagree. Like
I've
with
definitely seen
humans,
children be racist at school. I mean, it's still learnt behaviour in terms of
exactly.
you can argue that it's been taught from somewhere. I'm just saying that it is very natural for children groups to alienate what's different.
I disagree. I'm saying humans are different to animals. Like, animals will exhibit this into some degree in some of the ways of giving examples. But when you gave chimp an example, I would say they still is learned behavior. If all the chimps treated the bald chimp as normal or as the king, then they would all see that fucking bald chimp as the king. But what I will say with humans, we are unique again. We are the creatures of mind. We go on our community culture. That's what we run on. We don't have a sense of identity that is outside of our community culture. So the kid doesn't know he's black, white, green, purple. He doesn't identify in any real way. He will identify with whatever's around him, and however that's
A
perceived.
black child in a majority white school knows he's different.
Only by being taught it. Only by him being treated different. If he's not ever treated different, if the treatment was exactly the same, they ain't gonna feel no difference. They don't notice their blackness until later in life. It takes a few years before they actually really identify these variations, right? In the early days, they don't even notice. They just don't know. It's not pertinent. Why does it matter? I'm hungry. I need to piss. I want to sleep. I'm happy. I'm unhappy. I'm in pain.
No, I'm just saying that
in pain.
like what you're arguing against is that that you don't think it's inherent in
I'm
human
saying
nature
humans are learning creatures.
to group together around similarities and alienate what's different. I would argue
I'm
that
saying human are learning creatures. We define reality via our community and our culture. It teaches us what we're supposed to think. We are not as instinctual as a lion. A lion will naturally pounce and do all of these things. A human will behave how it's learned to behave, how it's learned to be. You know, it will feel safe by whatever it views as the
yeah, but
parent
I'd even
in
argue
its environment.
that there's an aspect of protection. There's an aspect of group security that lends itself to alienating what's different because you did that. What's different might be
Yeah, but how
dangerous.
do you define what's different? This is what I'm saying. A human defines what's different depending on what its community tells it is different.
No,
It doesn't
yeah,
know. It doesn't intrinsically do.
that's one way, but I think that's like a chicken or egg argument because actually you can say what comes first, the community um, conditioning or what's evidently apparent. If you're, and this is the example I gave, if and then similarly, if you do it the other way around, a white child walks to what's natural, and I'm just saying that I think it's human nature to see differences.
So you're talking about a white child growing into a black school. That's
Yeah,
already been around. It's already been socialized. You
yeah,
know what I'm
that's
saying?
what I said. At what age do we say? As I say, what age at 4, or what age do we say that the behaviors that we see exhibited in school age children is a consequence of either their natural human nature or conditioning? And I think it's difficult to separate. Obviously, it's very difficult to
I
separate
hear
it.
what you're saying. I've said this, like, really, really hear what I'm trying to say with this point here. Humans, right? We are the creatures of mind. We have to learn how to behave. We are not like a wolf or a dog or a lion or a cat or all these animals that have instinctual behaviors. We learn it all. We're blank. Do you follow?
You see, you don't think we've got
No,
any
I
instinct to protect.
disagree.
I think we've got. I think that
I disagree.
there's maternal instinct, there's parental instinct. I
You're,
think,
a maternal instinct, that's a
and this is,
mother. That's
and
someone
this
that's
is,
gone and
and this
have
is,
a child.
and this
That's
is
a
why I come
full
back to.
grown
This is why I
adult.
come back to
Hear what I'm
groups.
saying. Hear what I'm saying. Hear
No,
what I'm saying.
this is why I
Hear what
come
I'm
back to
saying.
group.
A
Group
lion
does
has
have
the same as well.
group has
Hear
So
what I'm
far,
instinct.
saying. Hear what I'm
No,
saying? By
because
the
what
time you've had a
you just said
child,
instinct. I say a group instinct. And what you're
if
the
a
point you're
child,
pushing is instinct over conditioning. My point is that, are you saying that there's no part of human nature that is instinctive in its group behavior? Is that what you're saying?
when you say, so the group behavior is going to be established by the group,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah,
What
yeah.
I'm saying is humans are
It's
going to
instinctive
behave.
though.
Hear what I'm saying. Hear what I'm saying. Humans, it's instinctive for humans to behave like the group. So how does the group behave? Now, the way the group behaves, that isn't instinct. That's how the humans in particular, we develop a behavior. This is why we have a different culture wherever we find us. We have a different eating style, different sleeping style, a different everything style. We see sex different, we see sky different, we see everything differently because humans are the creatures of mind. We are malleable. We're not like a cat. A cat acts like a cat, whether he's born in Africa, China, Japan. It doesn't matter. You're going to see a cat behave the same way. A lion acts like a lion. Nobody, you're going to be the same way. A dog acts like a dog. Doesn't matter. Same way. Humans are unique. Let me finish. Let me hear what I'm saying. Just understand this. What I'm saying is we behave depending on
And
our group's
environment.
ideology. No, we even in the same environment, two different groups are going to behave different when it's humans because of the culture of the group is going to decide how they behave within that environment. The environment doesn't decide how humans behave. Humans teach other humans how
Yeah,
to
but then
behave
we've
within
got
that environment.
things that we all have to do and be like naturally, innately. So that is, I think it's a bit of both to
I'm
a
just
certain point.
arguing. I'm not arguing I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, much. I'm
Yeah.
saying that I do believe that there's a human instinct to be tribal. There's a human instinct, and you're right. We learn.
We
We
have the
develop.
capacity for it, 100%.
We develop, and we learn ways to be more
Within that
protective.
tribe,
We
yeah.
develop systems and ways of being that becomes more. But I think at our core, there's an aspect of group instinct to protect, and in that protection, you have a prejudice of what's different. I don't necessarily think that us viewing difference has to be taught. I'm saying that the difference, you can see it visually. How you behave and interact with that difference, yes, that has to be taught. That
Yeah.
comes from social conditioning, cultural conditioning, environment conditioning. The minds of the group have developed differently. Of course, there's nuance, but one point, it sounded like you was arguing against groups of people instinctively maybe alienating people for protective reasons,
Here's what I'm saying.
away from kind of the we are. You've always come back to it's in the mind. Of course, it's in the mind, which means that all of these things can be instinctive. And I would argue that there's an aspect of prejudice. There's an aspect of what we've discussed in terms of what becomes colorism that's instinctive. And I think it's perfectly given example of when you look at children groups who are, for all intents and purposes, um, not tactful in terms of covering whatever social conditioning they may have potentially had. That
So,
we
so,
learn to cover, we learn tact in adulthood to cover kind of our unconscious or subconscious biases.
so what I'm saying is, yeah, like humans, right? A family, right? The kids could be completely different, but once the kids understand they're all family, they're not going to see that difference as meaning anything.
Oh no,
Anyone
yeah,
outside of the family,
it doesn't have to have a
let me
meaning.
finish,
It
let me
doesn't have to have a
finish. So,
meaning.
so this is the point I'm making. That is a social construct. If you are not raised with this idea of a family, you won't give a shit about anybody. This is human nature too. What you're fundamentally talking about, that prejudice, it is natural to humans, but it is rooted on the need to survive. All living things have it,
Yeah,
right? So we have this prejudice, what helps me survive, da, 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 da. But how it manifests in humans is wholly dictated by how our culture, our community, our group has taught us to think of it. So if we are bred or are raised to think of only my family counts, then everyone outside of my family doesn't matter, same race, nation, fuck them all. If we are taught that only people in my street count, in my village, for example, count, then everybody outside of my village, everybody in my village is good. Doesn't matter what color they are, don't matter what tall they are, don't matter what they look like, whether they got hair, they ain't got hair, because the rules are the village, whoever's in my village. If you're socialized that the rules are your nation, then that is your nation. If you're socialized the rules, Do you get it? We are socialized to pick a set of rules to go by. We don't go on instinct. We don't like red ants go on
No,
fucking pheromones.
yeah, that's
And
the,
when, let me finish. Let
I
me
agree.
finish. Let me finish. Let
I
me
agree
finish.
with all the
Red
points
ants
up
go on
until we don't
pheromones,
have
right? Let
instinct.
me finish. Let me finish. Red ants go on pheromones, innit? They got a chemical signature that tells them you're a red ant like me. We're family. We're good. Bees have something similar. Fucking dogs don't give a shit. Dogs, fuck all dogs. They're friends with all dogs. All they go on is, are we good or are we not good? I don't even know. Dogs don't really give a shit, right? You see, different animals have different instinctual traits that will make them behave certain way. With humans, it's not an instinctual thing, it's a cultural thing. Whatever we are cultured to think we identify with. If I was raised in the right environment, I would think, all white people, I'm white. They could have just told me that I was white, but I just come a black skin and they just love me the same. And the difference wouldn't mean nothing to me if I was cultured a certain way. And that is human nature.
No.
Right.
But I think it's fair enough. But I think what you're arguing against is man having instinct, and I think although I agree with everything you said up until we don't have instincts that drive these things, like of course instinct drives
Someone
all of
I
these
told
has
things.
you we do.
Someone has it
I
in
said
order to put it.
we have the instinct
Someone
to
has it
survive.
in order for it to be put in place.
Say that again.
I told you
Someone
we
has it.
do.
Oh, him.
I'm sorry, I told you we do have instinct. We have an instinct to survive. Now, because we're humans, we can build framework on this instinct to survive. This prejudice that you're talking about, this in-group, out-group, protecting the in-group, it's just about survival strategy.
Yeah, which
It's all it is, the need to survive. So
yeah,
how do I make sure me, my
yeah,
body, my
and
system survives?
therefore it's
Now,
an instinct.
humans come up with different logics to make them survive.
Yeah,
One simple logic is people in my family. That's
yeah,
my in-group. So people in my family help me. I help people in my family. We're together. We're a team. Fuck everybody else. Another logic is everyone in my village. We're all in the in-group. Everyone outside of the village. Another logic is everyone in my nation.
yeah, yeah. And
Another logic is everyone
those
in
are
my
layer,
religion.
and those
Another
are
one is everyone in
layers,
my
and those are
religion, and so on
layers,
and
and
so forth.
those are layers that we lay on top of what has been an initial instinct to survive.
Exactly. So I'm not denying instinct, but what I'm saying is the actual thing we run off is something we learn. So we don't actually run off the simple fact that he's different to me. We don't even identify the difference as being relevant until we're taught to identify the difference as being relevant.
Yes. So that's the difference in opinion there. I don't think I don't think I think
Everyone's different though.
the need to survive and the need to protect and tribalism means that you don't always have to be taught to alienate another person out of your of a prejudice. I don't think you always have to be taught. I think more often than not you'll find a type of conditioning behind all behaviors. But I think when we specifically speak about colorism or aspects of color or race or cultural based prejudices, I think there are aspects of it that come from instinct to survive.
Yeah, like I say, every difference that we've discussed, the ones that we've discussed, it it doesn't. You don't know that helps you survive. Me being colorist doesn't help me survive.
Oh no,
It
no,
only
no.
helps me survive because
Colorism is, as I said, is a modern thing.
no. But
We've
for
put the
example,
layers
I'm
on what
saying,
comes
for
onto it. We've
example,
put the layers on that.
I just mean for example, I mean all these prejudices, just somebody being different to a kid, right? That doesn't instinctively tell him and that's going to help him survive, right? There's nothing to that linking it to
Oh
survival. Like I say,
no. Fear of what you don't understand. Fear of what's different is a natural instinct. I definitely say that much.
but
Fear of
everyone's different.
what I'm
Everyone's
saying is
different. So
that
what I'm saying is, how do we identify the differences that matter?
we whether or not it matters or not is something else. I'm just saying that you can argue that humans make prejudgments on appearance to protect. Now, I think those judgments have become conditioned through culture and through time and all of the things that you've discussed in terms of how all of our behaviors are conditioned by a social group or some kind of grouping. I'm just saying that it does come from not just an individual instinct, that prejudice is also as natural, if you like, in a group scenario. And I think the examples that you've raised around the animals that have specific pheromones that they don't make a choice to have the pheromones. These pheromones are secreted. It's not a choice. I think you're right in terms of all of the things that I've even rebutted with in terms of what's instinctive. you can build on that instinct things that we've done with our minds to protect ourselves that we then condition our children with 100%. I was just wondering, I was probing as to whether or not you was trying to say that groups of humans can't interact with the world in an instinctive way, that they're then going to learn and develop. It sounded like you was arguing against it. Now, I know you're not, but it sounded like a point that you're saying that no, we don't have any instinct, we're completely blank, we have no instinct. And I'd argue that actually, no. If you put a group of people together who've had no teachings, they'll develop in a certain way that starts with their instinct to survive and protect. And I think it might be like a more of a sociological or sociology study in terms of the nature nurture argument, but I think groups do have instinctive behaviors that you could probably chart before kind of any kind of systems might be put in place. I think what was really interesting, what you mentioned earlier in terms of the Hindu caste system, like I definitely knew that the color was a strong feature, but I didn't realize that the color feature, the color aspect of the caste system in India not only predates any form of kind of European colonialism. We had this caste system. I think it's really interesting though where these come, and it comes back to the thing of instinct and class, like what's the origins of these systems that are put in place.
Check out the Ndinkra Symbols Connect the Dots drawing book series. We have 4 books in the series, all with 33 Ndinkra symbols turned into Connect the Dots puzzles. You have the name of the symbol, the phonetic spelling of the symbol, the meaning of the symbol, and the proverb attached to the symbol, because they usually have one. You can catch them all on Amazon. Enjoy, fun for the kids.
What's good? You know about Forever Family? Yeah. Do you? Yeah, I saw it inside of it. Right. What you know about Forever Family? Just heard of it. We're out here giving out free bags.
But we just mentioned there was a few things that were mentioned from part 1 and part 2. So one thing that was mentioned was the N-word, the use of the N-word. It was a brief thing that Naba mentioned, but off the back of that, somebody questioned me about it in general because he thinks it's fine. Did you see that little back and forth I put in the group chat?
Yeah.
Did you see it, sis?
Yeah, I did. I found it really interesting, to be fair. I kind of agree with him.
You agree with him? What was it? No problem with the word.
No, sorry. Hold on. Which part? Because you sent a few. So not the N-word. There was a king that sent a long.
Yeah.
I'm just going back to the chat now.
Got to that one.
That was
one
about
there.
the black.
Yeah, they got a long one. We're gonna get to that. So, because this one, the N-word wasn't even in part 3. That was whichever part. I think that was part 2 where it was mentioned. The man got. He didn't get back to me until later about this N-word use. So I just figured, because of that conversation is an ongoing conversation. Many people seem to have this, because obviously people use the word, innit? And then some will argue we shouldn't use it, and some people say it's not even that deep. No, we should use it. I personally think it's not grown. It's a bit childish to use it. And that's my thing. We shouldn't use it. You know what I find? My personal experience with this, working with a gym, obviously, when I was in London, when I was around the Mandem, it weren't that deep. But working in a gym in Oxford, a very white county, whenever like a song comes on and the N-word's in the song, even when it's censored, being the only black person in the room, I always feel like, yo, that's a bit mad still. Like, and I never really experienced that when I was in mostly black spaces. But when I'm in a mostly white space, or when I'm the only black person in the room in a completely white space, it's like, yo, I actually don't like the idea that this word is being used in this way. You know, I can feel, maybe it's in my head, but I can feel that everyone kind of, their ear pricks up. They're aware that word's just been used, kind of, you know what I mean? Give me a little side eye or a subconscious side eye. Maybe it's in my head. But yeah, ever since that I kind of not liked it. Actually, that's how it makes man feel in that space. There's a reason.
Yeah. I remember one point a few years ago. I think it was before COVID. I remember. I think it was Kendrick Lamar made that someone was a white guy was miming his one of his lyrics, one of his verses, and he wasn't comfortable with the person. I think he's got a couple of tracks where he says it quite often, and the guy was singing it passionately, and he wasn't comfortable. And I thought that was quite ironic that you've put the music out for everybody, and then your fans, who are probably not mostly white, but you've got a large population of pale skin followers who love your music and reciting your music, and they clearly don't feel uncomfortable using it, but you do. And I thought that was quite ironic. I'm thinking to myself, how can you justify using it so passionately, even if he uses it in points quite ironically? But I think when you kind of have issues with other races using it or rhyming back your words, then you've got to question why you're actually using it. And I thought that was interesting. But I think it's probably more of an African American issue where they culturally they used it a lot. I've never really been in spaces where we use it quite often, and even if we do, it's kind of in an American accent, and it's kind of like a parody of American slang. It's not really something we use in our own kind of ebonics, if you like. So yeah, I think you're right, it's childish, but I've always felt uncomfortable hearing our European counterparts or my paler skin friends use it, and it has happened on a couple of occasions where a couple of the paler skin out of a friendship group who use it, and you can feel the energy. It's like I don't think you should be using it, but I think these are kind of cultural terms that I think that those discussions are always important, and there's going to be spaces where white people are going to feel uncomfortable saying it, and I think they're uncomfortable for a reason, the same way we're uncomfortable about hearing it. So, but it's not. I don't think the conversation is going to go away, and people aren't going to stop using it. So I think the dialogue about the term is always pertinent.
This thing we're being childish about, it's obviously, I used to say, so when you say it's not that common over here, I used to say it all the time. Everyone around me used to say it all the time. You know what I mean? I think it is very common. We're like wannabe Americans.
Yeah.
So we're just as Americanized in that sense of thinking it's a normal term. Like the brother that I'm talking about, he's not even from London, he's not from ends like that, and he'd be throwing it around there, telling me about. He says it around his white friends, and you don't think it's weird. Yeah, it's a bit mad, isn't it?
Yeah,
my thing isn't even about, obviously it's mad if a non-black person says it, but I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about the feeling of hearing a black person say it around white people, and then they're hearing it and I'm there, and I feel like, yo, even that is, I'm sensitive to that. That's what made me realize what you just said there. What we got to think, what we got to understand is deep, is you got a bunch of artists using this word, and the people that basically make this music make money. The music industry isn't fueled by black people's money. So this word is being proliferated in our music, right, to non-black people, essentially, right? Obviously black people support a little bit, but the vast majority of the money that is generated from music sales and shows and events and all of these things is non-black people. So when artists use this terminology in the music and all of that, who else is there to hear it? Who's really, do you get what I mean? And to me, that's what made me think, yeah, it's mad that we use it. Because when I clocked that, how uncomfortable I was in a holy white space, and I realized our music is sold in a holy white space, really. So it's like we're marketing this term, and then we want to get annoyed when they use this term. It's backwards. It don't even make sense.
But that doesn't give them a right to still use it, even though...
It's not that I'm not even talking about them using it. I ain't even gone there. There. Obviously, that's dead. But us using it is what
us using it, definitely. Yeah, us using it.
The confusion.
If other people are right to, just because we are. And we shouldn't.
No.
I don't agree.
It's the level of it is, imagine, all right, so imagine they have enough respect to not use it.
Not all.
They understand. But I'm saying imagine, but we don't. So can you see what I'm getting at? The psychology of that they understand, yo, that's a mad word, you know, we don't know how to say it. but we're gonna be like, no, it's cool. It's like self-harming almost. Like somebody
I
won't
understand
harm
what you're
us, but
saying. They use it more as a way of taking ownership of it. There's also isn't there relevance? I think Nab will be able to come into it a bit more. There's more relevance to the actual name meaning something else. I think you mentioned it in one of our other
Yeah,
podcast before.
yeah.
There's a particular reason why it comes from a land or
I'm
something
from
that, you know,
Spain.
so
You're
yeah,
talking about Niger, you're talking about the word, the Spanish word. There's a whole logic kingdom before the term we meant king before, and then in Spanish it's another way of saying black. There are these other logics, yeah,
yeah.
I hear that, but that's not how it's
I know that's
used.
not how they're portraying it and how they're using it. I'm just saying that that's their reason behind it or what I've heard.
I think that specifically, like I think I heard, is it Michael Eric Dyson? And I think he was having a conversation with Nipsey Hussle about language and the reclaiming of the word, and he was the one that kind of spoke about kind of Negos is the Ethiopian term for king. I
Mm-hmm.
think there was Nagas in the Indus Valley. So, but these are all kind of later iterations to kind of justify
Yeah,
how modern culture is self-effacing, or it's a self-hatred term that we've internalized, and the simple use of it shows that we haven't fully understood the I mean, even to say that white people don't have the right to use it, they was the people that first used it as a negative for us in the kind of the modern enslavement process. So when people mention the word niggers, I think it was Tupac that said, "Oh, Nigger." Those are the people that are hanging around in hip hop clubs with chains around their necks, and Nigga was when they used to, and that was kind of in the 90s. I remember hearing an interview where he was saying that, and I think for African American hip hop culture, there was an argument. There's probably still is an argument for them for those practitioners using it, reclaiming it. But I just think it's sloppy. Like, I think when we try to justify it, it's sloppy.
Yeah.
I mean, when I say it's not used a lot, we used to use it, but it was an American. We used to kind of even say it in an American way. We didn't necessarily use it. I mean, to be fair, a lot of our terminologies we take from other places. It's what we
Yeah.
do as a culture.
What we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that's that. Like you say, it's never gonna end because like the new generation are using it now. So we're old.
I don't
So
think the new generation use it as much as our generation did, because I think hip hop culture has become a lot more regional, and we've got a lot more examples of homegrown British artistry to draw from in terms of cultural norms. Well, I think when we was growing up, we didn't really have a lot. We obviously had obviously the jungle era where we kind of had us speaking in British accents, but for the most part when we was using it we was mimicking Americans, whereas I think nowadays they've got a plethora of British artists whose slang, that we've got urban slang in this country that's I would say is used more widely than the American slang nowadays. I think our culture, our era used it way more than these youngsters do now.
yeah, I agree.
I mean, having
I don't
worked
know.
in
I
schools,
hear it in music.
over the last 15 years, I never hear it as much as I heard it when I was at school. I'd say that much.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean that's how you see it.
More grown now.
I'm not around a lot of kids, so but I hear it. I definitely hear it. Like I say, this guy that messaged me, people younger than me, they're not even a young G's, and I definitely hear it in the music, but I don't think it's going anywhere. And I do think over here it's completely normal. It's completely, we've normalized it to the point it's no one bats an eyelid, bro. That's just what I think anyway. All right, let's try and deal with this. So this is the long message that was thrown in a group chat about part 3. Oh, it's Heshima. So he's a sister, I would imagine. Heshima. So she's like, she don't agree with the English word black to describe ourselves. There's no country called black. If it was up to me to choose, I'd say Nubians or Melanites. Or how about the name where we came from? Syrians. So, all right, we got to break it down bit by bit because he said a lot here. That the Dogon elders said that we originated from Sirius star system. So we asked for other suggestions of the names. She suggested Nubians or Melanites. Now, Nubians, it's like it's a particular group of people. If we all want, I mean, I like the name. It is a cool name.
I like Nubians. We discussed that as well in our podcast, didn't we? Mentioned that as well.
Did we touch on Nubians?
Yeah.
We touched on it. We touched on the fact that Nubians was a name given to those people called Nubians.
Yeah. It
wasn't actually the name that Nubians, who we call Nubians now, gave themselves. That's all that we mentioned. But yeah, I mean, it's a nice name. It's a nice name.
And I did say I wouldn't mind being called that rather than black. I prefer that, to be fair.
Yeah, I don't actually know what Nubian means. But wouldn't it be ironic if it just related to blackness again?
No, I think that the Cometians or the people from Egypt, it was a term. I think it's people of the arrow. People of the arrow,
you know, because they were good arrow man.
Yeah, they're good archers.
Yeah, I remember hearing something about that. Okay.
Then I've also heard one of my Jabari Osaze gave a lecture about it. He'd spoken about the Nubians, or the term was a derogatory term that people used in Egypt for the people in the south. It was almost like they'd forgotten an aspect of their history, because most of the people from Kemet originated from that part of Nubia. It was so.
I didn't know.
But yeah, I mean,
I thought it was always positive. I didn't know it was. No,
I think it became positive when kind of Egyptology and the idea of the Nubian queen in the 80s, we began using that term, and I think it's been pushed out in popular culture in films like My Nubian Queen. But in terms of how we used it internally before it got taken in modern times, I have heard that it was a derogatory term used by Egyptians for the people of Nubia. Nubia wasn't a term that they used for themselves.
Because there was beef then, innit?
Well, I think there's been parts of the history where the northern part of Nubia were at points warring. So the Nama Palette, or King Menes, that unified Kemet, the Nama Palette has him dragging someone by their hair, and it was a Nubian. So there were parts of the history where parts of Nubia were at war with Kemet.
Yeah, I remember that. So what you're saying is them man there, that's their pagan. That's what they call their pagans, Nubians.
Yeah.
That's nuts. Okay, so like I hear it. The name, if you call your pagans, it's like calling your pagans Shankman or something. You get me? Or gunners. It's like calling your pagans gunners, because if you're right about the title being linked to the archery, because I do remember hearing that fact, archery. But that's an interesting fact there. Man will have to check that out. But she said also Melanites. Now, Melanites just refers to the thing that makes us black or brown, whatever you want to call it, which is just it's just a thing that gives us the color that we have. If we're running away from the naming ourselves by the color that we have, then I don't see that as better. Again, my argument against that is that you just don't like the negative connotations associated with black.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I'd agree to the point where melanin doesn't have the same historical negative connotations that black does. So I'd always be for using a term that doesn't speak to a history of any negative connotation. But I think the point that I agree most in that first part is that it doesn't specifically link us to a specific country, a continent, a language. But then also, when I was thinking about it, when you first put in a chat, I thought actually this is the reason why we don't unify, because we are clinging to that specific culture that our parents come from, or we're trying to connect ourselves to a longer, deeper history in the past. So actually, as much as I do agree with the term, with what she said, I do also think that black does unify all people, all oppressed people, if you like. And I think there is a power in that.
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I'm still comfortable with that because my thing, I'm just
uncomfortable with it. I just think I agree with that. It doesn't link us back to anything specific. If anything, it links us back to a specific part in history, like around the enslavement process, where we were taken from our history, we were taken from our language, and we don't. So a lot of us don't know exactly where we come from. So black is an accurate way to describe a people who lost an aspect of their identity. And I think there's a power in admitting that you don't know exactly where you come from.
So you're saying the lost ones should be called black? So.
I'm not saying that.
He's not saying ones. He's saying we all take that title because it works.
Well,
I'm saying, like, I hear what you just did there, and it's true. But if we go back again, Kem was black. So using this black term isn't something that was only other people thought of.
Yeah, but
we
spoke about that in the conversation.
Yes.
The use word Kem, black, more black. I would defer to those two terms, Kem and more, before I would use black. But consensus, application forms, black British, black Caribbean, those are terms that are used in modern times, and I don't shy away from those terms. I just think there are valid points to that. It doesn't link us back to a history or a language that we should take pride in, that becomes before we lost an aspect of our identity. I think black is a term that speaks to us losing an aspect of ourselves, and I think Kem, in a way that Kem and more doesn't.
Language. So that's your issue, using a term from someone else's language. I mean, I suppose so. That makes sense. The Logan elders.
What did she say next? What was the next part she said?
This thing about serious, bro. See what it is type of thing, yeah. You know the same brother, the same professor from Ghana that I use to reference the fact that, you know, we use the terms Kem and we use black throughout African cultures in different ways. That same brother, he's got a point on this because he's well studied on hieroglyphs. He knows how to read Metaneta and all of them because he's a linguist as well. So he knows many languages, many African tongues. And he says this whole thing about serious and coming from other places is nonsense. It's a misunderstanding. It's a misinterpretation of the writings. Okay. Or the teachings of the Dogon people and the writings on the wall, because people say that there are hieroglyphs that show rocket ships or spaceships, whatever you want to call them. He said, no, bruv, no, that's not what they are. Like, because he can read it. See what I'm trying to say? He makes many points, but you'd have to study him to see what he says clearly. I can't remember.
He asked me about, you know, a text from Kemet that's actually a carving on a wall where, you know, people are on, you know, white social media saying, oh, it looks like a UFO, it looks like a helicopter and so forth. And, you know, it would be like somebody who's reading the alphabet ABC and they see the letter A and they say, oh, that looks like a rocket, right? It looks like a rocket ship. If you know how to read, you're like, no, that's just the letter A. No, literally, that's the letter A, right? Because he's like, oh, you know, that looks like a helicopter. No, that's just the letter T. There's a letter. I know how to read. So if you actually, it's what they call palimpsest, and that's where you have one carving on top of another carving. And, you know, this is where you're looking at a carving that was made initially by the father, which is Sarah Seti, and then it was carved over by the son, which is Sarah Ramesu, Usamat Rasatepanra. So, you know, because of him carving on top of his father's inscription, then for somebody who doesn't know how to read, they're seeing it and they're like, oh, this looks like a UFO or whatever. But literally, if you know their names, you're actually just reading their names, one written on top of the other very clearly. So there's that.
But he basically says this whole notion about coming from space is just an analogy. I argued this before without knowledge, just saying logically, a lot of this mythology that different African traditions have isn't literal. It is a story. It is just a way of trying to explain stuff that is unknown, but in a way that logically makes sense. And he basically argues that no, the Dogons were not saying that we come from a particular planet over there. He's just saying that no, we're just people of the cosmic universe. We come from the universe, which is out there.
When people look at, you know, for example, the Dogon, so the Dogon say that they come from Potolo, which is, that's what they refer to as Sirius A, Sirius B, that star system. And then they said there's another one that's there as well. And you find also the significance of that star system in the form of Sepdet in classical Kemet, where that was associated with Auset, right? So when people talk about the virgin birth and so forth and so on, the father was associated with the belt of Orion. That's those 3 stars that you find in the belt of Orion. And those who are interested, you're actually at the right time of year to see this, because those 3 stars in the belt of Orion point directly to Sapdet, and then you continue on that line, and it goes to the southeast, exactly where the sun rises, which is Heru, on December 25th, right? So it was down for 3 days. So anytime they talk about, oh, the Savior died, was down for 3 days and then rose up, they're actually talking about where the sun gets to its lowest point in the sky, perceptibly stays there for 3 days, and eventually rises 1 degree until and that's the solstice, right? That's the sun at its lowest point, the winter solstice. Then it gets to the equinox, which is equal night and day. And then it gets to the summer solstice, which is the sun at its highest point in the sky from our perception, in the northern hemisphere, which is where we are in Ghana as well. So when, you have the significance of Sapdet, whether that's in classical Kemet or Portolo amongst the Dogon, what they are talking about is that essentially, if you read like the Pale Fox, if you read Conversations with Ogotumeli, you have variations on a common theme in terms of the origin of where everything came from. And they talk about an explosion that was so bright that it was invisible and so loud that it was inaudible. So essentially, this is what modern quote-unquote science will refer to as a Big Bang, right? And they're saying that the place where it happened was right there at Potolo. So it's interesting to try to, extrapolate this type of idea of, okay, well, if you are coming from this idea that all of this started off in one singular point, and they're saying that that's the singular point at which it came about.
And, an example is that Sirius star system, but basically, Yog is a nonsense. I've never really felt comfortable with this idea that we come from Sirius, if I'm honest.
Why?
Yeah,
I feel like all of that stuff is just fairy. I don't think it's true. I think humans developed on this planet. We are part of this planet. We developed on this planet. This is our home. We didn't come from somewhere else.
Okay. That's a whole nother
nature on the planet is all one system. We are part of this.
A whole nother topic.
No, but that's what she mentioned. She mentioned this whole Sirius. She said the dog and others said we originate from Sirius star, so maybe we should call ourselves Siriusians.
Siriusians. I think there are mythos around Syrians. I mean, to be fair, most cultures will have mythic or eponymous ancestors that came from the stars.
Yeah, it's a myth.
And certain spiritual traditions will speak of our soul groups, not our physical development or physical evolution over here, but our soul groups don't originate on this planet specifically. So you'll get the Nordics saying that they come from Pleiades. You'll get some people saying that there's aspects of Egyptian culture that was obsessed with Orion. So maybe they're saying that they came from the Orion solar system. I just think
it's all metaphor. It's all metaphor. It's not that they're saying they physically come. Even you're talking about a soul doesn't come from a place, a physical place. And in a way, you're talking about a star system over there. It's not my soul came from up over there and came up. It's a soul. A soul isn't a material thing. It doesn't exist in a physical space in that sense. You know what I mean? It's that's my view on it all. And like I say, that brother Cambon, he's got a long name. I can never remember his whole name, but he's a G. He knows his thing, and he just breaks it down as someone who knows who can read this stuff. And no, the Egyptians don't say they're from outer space. And even when they're trying to allow their spirit and aim it towards certain stars, it's not to go back home. People interpret it like, oh yeah, they're just trying to get back to their home star system. No, it's metaphor, it's allegory.
You mentioned, these different stages of it as well. So, initially you have, an egg where all of the sounds of the world were inside this egg. You have a seed, which is Digitaria, which is, the single, it's like the size of sand, like this tiny, grain and everything that exists exploded out from that grain and became everything that we know now. That's the sense in which they're talking about everybody came from there. They're not talking about, oh, in recent times we hopped in a UFO and then flew down when they talk about Nomo. So all of those things are, things that go into everything that exists came from that point, right? But it's interesting to look at the parallel between the Dogon creation story and then that of classical Kemet, because in classical Kemet, the beginning creation story and the end creation story give you conditions that are actually one and the same. So in the beginning, like Khumnu, that's the place of where we're sitting right now, the place of the 8. That's why this structure has 8 sides and there are 8 pillars and the lights have 8 sides and then, everything is 8, right? There are 8 lights around here because it's a shout out to classical Kemet, the place of the 8. So they say that in the beginning, you had Amin, Aminet, Nun, Naunet, Kek, Keket, and Het, and Hehet, which is to say that in the beginning, you had masculine and feminine hiddenness, masculine and feminine wetness, masculine and feminine darkness, and masculine and feminine infiniteness. Now, what that is actually a metaphor for the womb, and it's to say that if you understand procreation, then you understand creation. And if you understand creation, you understand procreation, because the two are literally one and the same. So the creation stories, it's actually, better to say a transformation story.
Symbolism. It's symbolism, fundamentally. This is what I'm getting at. It's symbolism to say that we are part of this entire universe. And out there, in here, as above, so below. It's all just one thing. So you can relate to being part of the wider cosmos. That doesn't mean that you're from another planet. I say all nature on this planet is one family. I don't know why that ain't enough. I think that's amazing enough. We developed on this planet. That's amazing. The fact that happened is amazing. Like I say, I think it's just a misinterpretation and people just like fancy stuff. I'm not judging, because many people have this view and I just have my own view and I think it's just not true, innit? So look, she went on. Others say we are from another planet called Risks.
That's Malachi Z. York's team.
Yeah.
That's Malachi team.
Yeah. No comment. We've come too far in our reacquaintance with our higher knowledge, and as our pituitary gland and our pineal glands decalcifies, awakens and reconnects us to a wider multiverse and the electromagnetic waves that permeates the cosmos in the higher wavelengths and planes, it is time to reclaim who and what we are through higher consciousness. So what I want to say about a statement like that is, because this is why I'm kind of pro-black, right? For me, the term black, or what black truly describes, I shouldn't swear, forget connotations, what black is, not what a certain group of people have connotatively linked it to with their understanding of what black is. Because there's like more of a fear culture, so they need this dichotomy of good and evil. But for us, when we understand black, it literally relates to everything that was just described there. Because again, black is the unseen realm. It is the source of all. It has all frequencies in it. There's not a higher frequency or a lower frequency that is not described within black. It is all. It is literally where everything comes from and goes back to, in whatever sense you want. Literally, spiritually, physically. It is the natural state. It's the first, it's the alpha and the omega. Do you get what I mean? So for me, this is why I'm pro-black, because that understanding of black for me encapsulates all this that she said, electromagnetic waves permeating the cosmos, wavelengths, different planes, it's all times. All these things are encapsulated by blackness, in my mind.
Yeah, no argument from you on that one there still. I mean, I do think when people speak to, I mean, the man from Risk, like I attended a couple of the Nuwapian, it's not a couple, I attended for about a year and a half back in the mid-90s at a Brixton Recreation Centre, where one of Malachi York's sons used to teach. And that specific mythos wasn't pushed as hard as unity and economic growth, but there was a kind of, I guess, an element of the teachings that were inspiring at the time. The idea of us coming from another place, developing in other places and choosing to come here. as spirits, as soul groups, not as kind of space-faring interstellar. And I'm not fully opposed to that being the reality. I think we've got so much more to concern ourselves with as a race, as an oppressed people, that I have spent a certain amount of years being very interested in this. It's probably one of the reasons why I'm so fascinated with science fiction. But I think to counter that argument, I think it serves as escapism in points.
I believe so.
I think unless it can be practically applied to your life in a kind of a positive sense, it doesn't serve more a purpose than me being a Marvel fan or finding the comparisons with, I don't know, the civil rights movement with the kind of the X-Men aspects. Like Professor X was Xavier, and Magneto is Malcolm, in terms of kind of how we're dealing with
Malcolm. Yeah. I personally think it's all analogies. We make stories to explain things, and it's the easiest way for us to comprehend something, and it's the easiest way for us to pass on knowledge. It's way easier than explaining things in real terms that someone can't comprehend. I'll just give you a story, and I think this is a thing that has happened throughout human history, where the next generation or the generation after the next generation after the next generation misinterprets these stories as literal history, as opposed to a learning tool. It gives you an opportunity to understand there's some aspect of you that is not as simple as your body, or as simple as, the matter in you, and it's this aspect. So all these ideas about coming from other places and being somehow not just human, to me, is just another way of saying there is an immaterial aspect of you. And there's many stories just explaining that, So that's just my view on it anyway. I think it's way more simpler. There's this thing called parsimony in science, right? The principle of parsimony, which is like, you can have a theory. Like if I was to wake up and I was to see there were some footprints on the doorstep, my front door, the simplest explanation is that one of the housemates walked on that footstep, right, that made those footprints, right? But I could also theorize that an alien came down, made those footprints, and went away. Now, I don't know which one's true, right? But for one of them to be true takes a lot more leap of faith. There's a lot more other things have to happen. Both of them equally explain the footprints, but one of them requires a lot less other things to be true for it to be true, for it to, So, and that's what parsimony basically says. So in a scientific theory, you want the theory that requires the less leaps of faith, the least leaps of faith possible, the least assumptions possible, because it's most likely that one. If you can come up with a reasonable explanation that doesn't require a whole bunch of, it doesn't mean it's true. It's just a way to understand looking at things that is more reasonable, is because if you don't have that kind of rule, then that means anything's always possible, and you're just in Lulu land. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So that's my logic.
So I think with these topics, you kind of find the lane that resonates with you, and so I can say I've subscribed to a lot of these ancient alien theories, for example, or ancient black alien theories. And then you can say in the counter to that, we're going through, in the last couple of years, we're going through a huge UFO disclosure where there's apparently many different aspects of extraterrestrial life that have seeded on this planet. And I think that it's all interesting, but I think when we spend too much of our time, unless you're going to kind of spend your time as an academic and you're going to make it work for you, I do at points, and I have questioned why the interest and why people will argue against what would be less of a leap of faith than kind of the And I think you look at it as kind of paranormal or things that kind of require you to kind of almost obfuscate common sense or logic and say, actually, no, this is possible. And I think those things are important for development. But I think when you look at it as teaching tools, they really need to kind of get you to a point where you're the way you view yourself, the way you raise your family, the way you interact with your community is better for it. And I don't know if most of the people that kind of have arguments online about some of these theories, I'm not sure if it's making them or inspiring their higher or lower selves.
Yeah, bro. It's like the flat earthers, bro. It's just nonsense, man.
It's about controlling the narratives. You understand me?
We have more difficult days ahead, and some of the old optimism was a little superficial, and now it must be tempered with a solid realism. And I think
What they say ain't what it is. Guys, that's why we gotta control the narrative. I said, what they say ain't what it is. That's why we gotta control the narrative. You understand me? It's about controlling the narratives. You understand me?
Colourism Boot Camp is a program we've created for 8 kids, secondary school kids preferably. And basically we teach strength and conditioning, we teach boxing, fundamentals, meditation, which includes breath work and mindfulness, and nutrition. We just teach them some things that we had to learn in later life, and it would be nice if someone had told us a bit earlier. Now, it's a community funded program, raise money to run this and pay for this. We give them a whole bunch of kit. They all get some gloves, they all get wraps, they all get a medicine ball, exercise mat, skipping rope, and they all get a resistance band. They even get some more stuff from sponsors that have supported this boot. And it's all done in Brixton Street Gym, the original sponsor. Yeah, if anybody's interested, please get in contact, pypbootcamp@gmail.com if you want to try and get involved in the next one, because we're going to keep running this, try and keep it a consistent program. So boom, the acceptance of other people's labeling and titling us is dead. We should now bury it finally. Black, swarthy, complexion, etc. It's not who we are. Our name should describe what we are and who we are compositely. Black confuses our children, and even though we have claimed it in the 60s, 70s, 80s, turned it around from its negative to a positive, its spiritual and intellectual heights. I'll stop there. So basically, I get it. I understand. It's still one of those ones where most of us feel like it's a name that was given to us by other people. And no matter how many times we could say it in other languages, we've used the same term. Clearly, in this iteration of it, we've used it as a consequence of this interaction with other people.
Yeah, so the negative connotations are modern in terms of our history with the how closely we've related to the colour black.
Yeah. So she understands that we've taken the term and reclaimed it in the 60s to the 80s, turned it round, but it doesn't, for her, it doesn't give credence to our spiritual and intellectual heights. She makes a reference to Al-Kuban. What's that? Al-Kuban.
Yeah.
Another thing that brother says, that professor says, that Ben,
it's an Arab.
Is his name? Yeah, Ben Yosef, is that his name? Rabbi Ben Yosef.
Dr. Ben Yosef. Your canon.
Yeah, he's the one that said that was the original name, and apparently there's no other reference outside of him for that being the original term.
Cheru is the name of this type of, deep, dark ochre. So it said that Khanum made the people out of this black ochre. So even if you wanted to say it's referring to the land being black, the people themselves say that they're made out of the black land. So, again, that's what's very important.
I'll hold you on that for now.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of Arkabulan?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What's Arkabulan?
So that is traced to Dr. Yosef ben Yakanin. Yosef ben Yakanin.
Mm-hmm.
He's an author who wrote Black Man of the Nile and His Family.
Black Man of the Nile.
And His Family, and other very influential texts, let's say in the 1980s.
Where did he come from?
So he came from the Caribbean islands. He schooled in the U.S., he became a professor also in the U.S., but in various places. So according to,
African?
yeah, he's a black man.
Okay.
And he actually preferred to use the term black person because African doesn't tell you anything. Because you can say African and then they'll start pointing at Dutch Boers in South Africa. You'll say African and then they're pointing to Arabs in the African Union. You understand? But when we use our own languages, we're actually referring to the real people who the land is associated with. And we find that again in our own languages. So basically he's translating what we have in our own worldview into English as a black man. So yes, he was a black man, very, very black man. And the one who you mentioned, Ashra Kwesi, he's the one who took Ashra Kwesi to Kemet, where Ashra Kwesi, you know, that was his introduction into Kemet, as well as many other people, because Nana Yosef Ben Yakinen had been going to Kemet all the way back into like the 1930s, 1940s. So that's, you know, long before a lot of people were thinking about Kemet or anything about Kemet.
Anyway, let's come to the Al-Qabulan.
Yeah, so the only attestation that I've ever come across for Al-Qabulan is through him. Like I've never come across any primary text, any primary documents, anything that says Al-Qabulan. And it's a bit suspect to me that it starts with Al, which sounds very Arabic, you know, in that. And then even, you know, when you read Black Man of the Nile and his family, you don't get a breakdown of like what are the parts of it. Does it refer to, you know, does the Al mean something in terms of like a definite article? Is the Kebulan, is it referring to black? Like what is it? So for me, I'm always looking at primary sources. You know, I'm very respectful to Nana Yosef Ben Yakinen. He actually came to our bookstore and cultural center where we presented him with an award for lifetime achievement and so forth and so on. But I don't use Al-Qabulan because I don't know any primary text that uses that anywhere.
That brother, that same Professor Gabon, I didn't look for it after that, but I kind of like taking his word for things because he's a very knowledgeable brother. I like listening to his stuff. When he talks his stuff, you can tell he's really researched, and so he's saying there's no other source outside of him. He's not saying he doesn't respect Brother Ben. He knows he's a scholar of, you know, of that time period. He done a lot of good work, but he's saying there's no other source that he has found outside of him for that being an accepted title for Africa. So not only is that I'll tell you it's probably Arabic, it's the simple fact that there's no other source he's found. And when I thought of it, it's true. I have not heard it in any other place. People that refer to that title always refer to his book, is what I'm saying.
Oh, hold on. In the book Kemetic History of Africa, it's Sheikh Anta Diop
that came up with our book.
Yeah. In the book Kemetic History of Africa, celebrated Senegalese historian Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop asserts that the ancient name for Africa was Al-Kibalan, meaning mother of mankind or Garden of Eden. The name Al-Kibalan, he writes, was used by the Moors, Nubians, Ethiopians, and other indigenous groups.
Can you see if there are other sources for that outside of his writing? Like, so the Moors, the Nubians as well. Did he say the Nubians?
Yeah.
Really? That is an Arabic word, bro. So that would be thousands of years old, that would be then.
Let me go into books. So, Dr. Ben Yosef in Mother of Western Civilization, and...
Who was first? Sheikh or Ben Yosef?
They was contemporaries.
So, potentially Sheikh. No, but whose book was first? Because I'm saying, is Antioch did he get that information from Brother Ben Yosef?
Kemetic History of Africa. Let's find the dates of the book. Hold on.
Oh,
date.
Okay, boy.
Diop. So that
is
1923 to 1980. When was the book published, though? Oh, let me just go on to thingy. So that was published in 1974.
That's Sheikh
Anta Diop, Sheikh's book, and then when was Dr. Ben's one. Dr. Ben. 74 and 1986. It was 10 years later.
You see? So he's got that off of my man, bro. And outside of Ben, there's no reference for it outside of Ben. That's what my man's saying. And he's saying he see high and low. So he doesn't say it's false or wrong.
Yeah, and
he just
a
says,
lot of those books in the 80s weren't good references. Some of them got their books from like they reference Blavatsky, they reference certain books.
He's careful to not say that though. He's careful. What my man says, listen, his information is good. Like the book is good, but that particular thing, he cannot find nothing else. He cannot find nothing else substantiating that was the name, right? So he doesn't even say that he's wrong. That's not the name. Yeah. He just says, listen, bro, I'm just telling you as someone who's looked for it, that is the earliest source I can find for that being a name. And I don't know where he got it from. I just don't know. I can't find another scholarly source for the name. So would you want me to tell you, innit? So he says, listen, I'm not really too comfortable with that because, first of all, because he's a linguist as well, he can tell it sounds Arabic. So he says that's a bit fishy in itself. And then secondly, he's like, brother, I just can't find another source. He doesn't say that it isn't really, outside of that, he doesn't say it's not reliable. He just says, I can't find nothing else that backs that claim.
See, look, Al-Kibalan is the oldest name for Africa. In Arabic, it means the land of the blacks.
There you go. Look at that. So even if it is, who knows, innit? But yeah, that was my contention with that because my man says that word there isn't necessarily even the real name that man used to use. So Africa, it said burnt faces doesn't suggest it to us. It's simple. I'm going back to the sister's thing still. So she doesn't like Al-Bukan. She doesn't like Africa. She said burnt faces does not describe us. It simply suggests how other people saw us. It was never down the now, but up the now. Yeah, this is true. How is it we still don't get it? It is beyond us. Whichever way we may choose to express it, we need to move away from where we are, where we've been, to where we should be. The way it should work is the people should all have a say. We made from cosmic dust the particles that floats around the cosmos. Western science cannot explain, so they call it no thing. There is no such thing as nothing. Cosmic dust is real. It is the matter of space and time. It freely moves in and between spaces and time. Our skin, eyes, bones, organs, hair, and our DNA are made up from this dust. Black just does not describe this composition, this beauty. Every particle of dust has its own unique identity, consciousness, and being. We call themselves. The three stages of dust being pulled together are the stages of what we call matter. Matter does not die or cannot die. It simply reverts to its original state of dust. In reverse, in a new state of consciousness gathered in and through the life experience that it will use to regenerate, and when it learns how to regenerate, it manifests by its own will. Black does not express the immortality of the Melanite or new beings. I don't know if she just done that herself. Europeans have been inventing weapons and ways and means to kill us from the beginning. At each crucifixion, hanging, picnic, lynching, execution, they watch in morbid fascination, in celebration that they have killed a child of God. Each time we rise up, and each time even more inventive in our killing. They tried to kill us physically using black and spiritually ridiculing our spiritual connections with all things dust, so they may well think the glimpse of what's been said here is utter nonsense. Do your research. For over 40 years we've been teaching Kazimba Ijat Chene Duru. I don't know what that is. Fighting our black people. Our journey has revealed so much information and knowledge. On the back of this, my graphic experience has connected us with Eric and Jessica Huntley, Robin Walker, Bad Boy, and many more. I've become a lecturer in English, math, science, including typography and graphic arts. Many of our Mwanfanzi has embraced different aspects of life, teaching, expressive arts, etc. So I wouldn't vote to neither, nor I would vote no, neither, not black, not African. Or if African, it should be Africa with a K.
Yeah, we spoke about that.
You did. with a spiritual double. Peace, Hamza, Mawilimu Naka Zimba Nyongma. I think that's what it says. So what I want to say about all of that is he seems very comfortable with the term dust, right? What I'm saying,
That's got negative connotations.
and even if it's not negative, I'm saying
It's space
that
dust.
it is
Cosmic
no
dust.
more superior than black for the same reasons I've already expressed. It's just dust. Dust does not explain all the majesty that she is talking about, but I would say black does, if it's seen a certain way. You could say dust is the fundamental thing, and she's using it as a term to explain the most fundamental thing. Like it's almost like saying atoms in science, the way she, right? But physical isn't most fundamental. What I love about the concept of black, the black science of it all, is that it is the thing that describes the no thing that she's talking about. Even again, when you look at something that's black, you're not actually seeing the light. No thing is hitting your eyes, but you're perceiving it. You're perceiving blackness without perceiving it. It's like perceiving no thing. To me, it's all like scientifically, literally, it's all a bit majestic. More so than dust or any matter for that matter, in my mind. So I guess it's a different perspective on stuff. I like that she cares enough to have written all of this. And she's clearly somebody that's spent a lot of time studying and looking at our people, trying to come to a conclusion about all of this. Essentially, she seems happy with African, just not African as spelt how we spell it.
But even that, like when people, there's been a lot of debate. I don't think it's clear now. So I think there was a Roman guy called Africanus, but there was also a North African tribe called the Afri or the Efer people. That may well have been the first people that the Romans come into contact with. So, yeah, I think we find the term that's most comfortable with us.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with Africa. I don't have a problem with that.
I think even if we do have honesty, and I know it's an English word, but I feel like we need to make peace with blackness in itself, because I honestly think it's deeper than that word. We have internalized the dislike of blackness, and I think it's a bit disingenuous to act like we only don't like the English word. I think that's like consciously that's what we're saying we're opposed to. I don't think so. I think and I don't mean the connotations either. I mean blackness itself, in whatever language, the actual concept of blackness. We have internalized this dislike of that, and
but you have to agree that we've internalized it in modern times because of the connotation, because of the oppression. The idea, and away from that, many of us in our childhood would have feared the darkness. So there's an inherent fear away from race, of fear of darkness or fear of the unknown. And I think that also speaks to some people's inherent fear that they will try to attribute to enslavement, the West, white supremacy, or the term whiteness, when actually I think some of it will be to do with our fear of darkness, our fear of the unknown, as much as the connotations. I don't think there's one reason why we fear the acceptance of blackness. But I think it's multifaceted.
This is my point. So you said it's wholly rooted in the conditioning, and I would agree to a degree. I'm saying that in ancient times, before this current conditioning, we would have conditioned ourselves to not be scared of it via our knowledge. Do you understand? Our cultures understood what you said. There's this fundamental fear of what's dark, but we were taught to listen. You can't be run by your fear, bro. Remember, spirituality is about dominating yourself, in essence. Being able to control yourself, your feelings and your energies, your mind, your spirit. So you're not moved in any way that you should know you shouldn't be moved. So you should know there's no need to fear the dark or the blackness. You should know there's no need to fear death. This is what we used to teach. This is our cultures based on these understandings that isn't something to fear, because that is where your ancestors go. That's where they are now, furthermore. That's where you came from, furthermore. So the more you fear
that, into consciousness as well.
100%, 100% on a scientific one, but 100%. But purely on a spiritual understanding one, what I'm saying is our cultures understood what you said there. Forget these more modern connotations and ideas about blackness. From our own background, we understood this innate fear of black, but we understood that as an ignorance. We understood that as an ignorance, and a misled life leads into that kind of fear and ignorance. So we kind of ran at that to teach, no, you know, if you know self, you will not fear the darkness. Even in other cultures, they understand that the idea of meditating, closing your eyes and going into the darkness, because that is where you learn. That's where everything, oh my gosh, you realize that's where the universe is. This is the spiritual lingo, isn't it? But when you're ignorant, you will run from that. You'll try and stay with what you know, with what you can see, with what you can control, because you feel like you're safer there. That's an ignorant way of being, and it's not spiritually enlightened. It's not high frequency, and all of these terms. Do you get what I'm trying to say? It's not someone who's aware. If you're aware, then you will know there's no need to fear the blackness, because that's where I came from. And you know what? I got no way. I'm going back. I will go back there. That is where it all goes at the end of the day. So what's the point in fearing that? That's a life of fear. Wrap all of that into the idea that, if I'm actually scared of this thing and I resemble this thing, what the fuck? I'm scared of me now.
Yeah, and I think that conditioning goes to, again, popular culture, horror films, even the idea, because I remember when I think about my childhood and I think about the idea of turning the lights off, there was an aspect of fear, because there was a fear in the not knowing, and that you learn to embrace not knowing. And I think you're right, you have to step beyond the ignorance of the unknown to understand self. And I think it's far easier to kind of place that fear outside of self and say, actually, you know what, the white man gave us this, the white man gave us that, or European or enslavement gave us this. Actually, the idea of blackness, the idea of the void came way before any of this condition. And I think it's important that that's as we're made as aware of that as we are kind of the terms that have come in modern times. Like even when you look at the kind of the different tribes, the different names of the tribes that could potentially be the origin of the term Africa, they are still quite modern.
100.
Alkpila, all the terms, more, Kem, they are still modern terms that we've used. And the connotations that are attached to them are because of kind of miseducation or ignorance. And I think it's important to understand that first when you're in your research.
Yes. Yeah, man. I honestly think you hit the nail on the head. This is just way deeper than anyone's connotations. It's a deep human thing, and to be scared. But remember, fear is the enemy, right? Fear is what leads back to ignorance. So if we're scared of that which we are naturally, that we're scared from that which we come from, that's just being the same thing as being scared of life, man. So we are supposed to learn in this life that there ain't nothing to fear about it, bro. That's why another reason, my thing is, the only real solution is, you gotta love the blackness, man. You gotta love the dark. It's peace. It's alpha, it's omega. I know I'm repeating myself, but I honestly think, I remember when I kind of clocked that, and all of a sudden, all these concepts, the spiritual realm, the unseen realm, even the concept of the unknowable God, and I read these words before. I was like, yeah, because I was one of those that I studied these spiritual concepts I wouldn't say an atheist, because I kind of believed there was something, but I looked at it all as fairy tales. I didn't think there was nothing there that was real. It's just different people's interpretations of stories. I always felt that. But it was one day, it all kind of just made sense. I saw the logic of it all, and it's I get what you're explaining. And one thing for me, and I know this is a personal thing, I guess, is that concept of understanding that black is not something you actually see. You perceive it, but you don't see it. So it is this, and it relates to all of these things in real terms. I'm kind of scientific like that. I like the way that is an actual physical representation of nothing. That's something. I was like, yo. And then I started putting that same understanding into all of these concepts, and everything started to make a lot more sense. So to me, it just makes sense. But we move I mean, it's not much left. A few questions, like when he was talking about melanin. So a lot of people were very impressed by the price. I'm not gonna lie, when I looked at that post, again, even I had to recheck the value of melanin because I was like, did I get it right? Because it's a stupid amount of money in it. Like that, a lot of people like that post and use that, and I was like, yeah, melanin is worth a lot. But pointing out to people the theories I had about, you know, the way why do I produce more melanin if I'm already protected? Most people that commented kind of didn't understand the point I was making, but one did. Sent me a study. Kind of looked at it. It didn't really disprove anything, but I think she's a doctor of some sort. So we were going back and forth, and she made some good points. But she said logically, she said theoretically in her head, logically, if you are darker, you are more protected, even amongst black people in Africa. But I still stand. That's a theory. That's an opinion. You don't really know that. There's no studies. Like the study she sent me checked between white population and mixed race population and a black population. Not like he was discussing like a lighter black population and a darker black population. That didn't check that. And I said, I will bet any money you're going to go and check that, of course, some people, you're going to check, they're not going to be any more higher cancer rates than a darker skinned African population. I'll bet money on that. But she just says, no, logically speaking, the way it would work is that, yeah, if you got more, you're going to be more protected. You always need more. I'll be like, yeah, that's just an assumption based on the logic that is there for protection. So it's inconclusive. Nobody knows. And I think she is some sort of medical professional. The study she sent me, she kind of sent them quick as well. You know what I mean? But one thing that did come out that was interesting, that someone mentioned that the Khoisan people are not the oldest. The Sandwe and the Hadza people are older.
I checked that when you sent it. That's not true. I mean, all that in a quick desktop research showed me that both the Sandwe people and Hadza people, you can go back about like tens of thousands of years, whereas the Khoisan people are thought to be 100,000 years old. So no.
Are they thought to be hundreds of thousands of years old, or is it their genetic lineage is said to be? Because you're talking about 40.
Yeah,
they're talking about 40,000 years. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
The Khoisan's genetic lineage goes back over 100,000 years. In terms of our oldest ancestors, the DNA can be still linked back to that specific tribe.
Yeah, so how do we know that these Hadza people or Sadwe people do not, like, because just because that tribe is only 40,000 years old, is that we said tens of thousands of years old? Does it?
I think
is it not? So what you're saying? What is it? What did you find?
So when I looked at the Hadza, hold on, I'll go back up. The Hadza diverged more than 15,000 years ago from the Sandwe.
Okay. And
it was thought that the Hadza language was once classified with the Khoisan language because of the cliques.
Yeah, they all have cliques in it. Yeah.
15,000 years for the Hadza, 40,000 years for the Sandwe, and did I bring up the
Sandwe people are considered one of the oldest tribes of Africa, with estimates suggesting their lineage could date back to tens of thousands of years, potentially as far as 87,000 years. So that's
Khoisan are the oldest people right now. Origin
between 150 and 90,000. Yeah, the people have split from other humans. Okay, their culture is one of the oldest. That doesn't mean that tribe is that. They're talking about the split from other humans as opposed to the establishment of a tribe. I don't think it's the same thing.
Khoisan people, indigenous Africa, 150,000 years ago. Made up of the San and the Khoi peoples.
The Khoisan and the Khoisan culture.
Mitochondrial DNA evidence suggests that the DNA Khoisan split from other humans between 150,000 and that. Yeah.
So that's different than the Khoisan people that's being established. The Khoisan people, I think, are 50,000 years.
Now, remember the Khoisan, it's two terms that modern scientists put together.
Yeah. So they knew that the Khoisan or Khoisan culture is one of the oldest in the world, estimated to be 50,000 years old. So that's the culture, right?
Yeah. So what I've got is it says mitochondrial DNA evidence suggests 150,000 to 90 years ago, and that would make them the oldest tribe now. Their DNA goes back.
That's not the tribe. That's when that lineage split. The tribe itself is 50. Now, if we're looking at the same thing for the Sandway people...
No, I'm talking about Khoisan.
I know. So that number you're talking about is when they split from other genealogy. Their branch split off. That wasn't the establishment of the Khoisan people. So when their ancestors split off from other human people 150,000 years ago, and then 100,000 years later, they become the Khoisan people. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So, because obviously these Sandway people are going to have ancestors. Obviously, they're alive, so they have ancestors as well. We haven't checked when their lineage broke off, if you get what I'm getting at.
When you get into mitochondrial DNA, it's all just the lineage. There's not kind of one... I would just argue that specific tribe have got the oldest DNA markers.
When we say that, what we're saying, right, is that their lineage can be shown to have started from the earliest point.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
From a point in the lineage, it goes back further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we're saying it doesn't mean, because everyone's the same age basically. It doesn't mean like what, do you get me? But what we're saying is the version of them that we've got now, right, is the one that we can see come from that lineage at that earliest point. But that doesn't mean that these the Sadway people don't have something earlier describing the same thing. We just haven't.
We just haven't found it yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We just haven't found it. I think
we're using two different measurements.
I think the further we go along in terms of the science, we're going to find genetic markers for people that go further back. This is all based on kind of how much of a DNA samples we have. So right now, in terms of the science that we have now, the Khoisan people's genetic lineage goes back the furthest. We would have broken off... all other peoples would have at some point broken off from that same lineage. We all come from a similar lineage. So, I was just arguing that the Sandway people have been rumoured to come from, the Sandway specifically have been rumoured to come from the San people. And the Khoisan is just two specific cultures now who share a mitochondrial DNA linkage back to these older sets of humans or upward walking hominid.
Interesting. Yeah. But I've got to study this a bit.
I think I always find these discussions interesting because actually the idea of who's first, why is it important? I think I used to watch...
It wasn't a first. What they saying is that is the oldest unchanged. What they mean by that is it's the oldest unchanged, i.e. there's no other, because there are many mixes and matches. Even the Sandway people, they're saying they're made up of people from North, they're made up from Middle Eastern, from the Middle East, Central Africa, Southern Africa, and that's how you got the Sandway genealogy, right? What they're saying with them, man, there, with the Khoisan, they're saying that they are the unchanged for the longest, unmixed. But even that isn't, because I saw somewhere else that there was a back into Africa. So people left and came back. I've heard they've got some amount of Neanderthal DNA. Some of them, it's been shown. So they have some at some point in their history mixed with Eurasians. So they still have, like you said, matrilineal DNA chain goes. That's only one side of the whole family. So there has been demonstrated that there is some other mix that has come from a different point. It's just that you can demonstrate that they have got one unbroken chain, and they have the longest unbroken chain. That's what it means.
And people miss or kind of miscommunicate the longest unbroken chain to the first peoples. There's no, we can't, we don't. There's no
Everyone's the
first
same
peoples in that.
age. You go back far enough, we all got the same set of ancestors. So it's not, no one can be older than no one. It's just to say they're the longest unbroken chain that have been established. So they are going to be more similar to the ones that were back there than everybody else. Whereas everybody else has mixed and matched everywhere. So you can't say that the people that are there now are the same as the one, because they have more mixed than other people. That's what it means. So they're the least mixed that you can find. That's what they are.
So what my point I was making is that when someone says, no, they weren't the first people, the Sandway and Hadza people, it's an argument about who was first. And that isn't a scientifically sound argument to make, is my point. So it reminds me of when you hear kind of Kemet arguing against Hebrew Israelites, what came first. We're older, so we're more established, or there's more power in saying you was the first to do something. And I think that there's an ignorance in that specifically. And I think when someone says, no, they weren't the first people, these were the first people, that's not what the science says. Which is the oldest chain we find now. 100 years from now, 50 years from now, we've got a better look or a better understanding of the genome, or kind of how we can kind of trace both matrilineal and patrilineal DNA strands. It will change.
I think what he means is what I was saying. This is what I mean. We're using two different measurements. He means the tribe itself, the establishment of the tribe. He's not talking about DNA. So the Sandway, according to what I just Googled now, is 85,000 when that particular group was established. And then the Khoisan particular group was established. That title, whatever you want to call it, is 50,000 years. So but he's not recognizing you weren't referencing that.
Yeah.
You weren't referencing that measurement. So he's arguing on a different measurement.